ladies and gentlemen, there's a moment we've all experienced the sting of being ignored. Perhaps it's a conversation that was left hanging, a message that remains unanswered, or a glance that doesn't even reach you. And in that moment, we feel something. It's more than just discomfort. It's a deep emotional sting. We feel rejected, overlooked, or dismissed, and it hurts. Why does it hurt so much? At the core of it, we are wired for connection. As human beings, we thrive when we feel seen and heard. When we are acknowledged by others, our sense of belonging strengthens. So when someone ignores us, it's like a gap has formed where our sense of worth was once nurtured. It's easy to take it personally and wonder, what did I do wrong? Why don't they care? But what if we could shift our perspective on this moment? What if being ignored is not a reflection of our value, but rather a signal, a sign that there's more to the story than meets the eye? What if the hurt you feel, the discomfort you experience, could be a doorway to a new understanding of yourself? You see, moments like this are not just setbacks, they are stepping stones. We often seek validation from others because we believe it affirms our place in the world. But what happens when we are faced with silence or rejection? This is an opportunity for growth, an opportunity to look inward. It's a moment to reflect on who we are, not based on the acknowledgement of others, but based on our own principles, our values, and our vision. When someone ignores you, it doesn't mean you are less. It doesn't diminish your worth. It simply means there is something happening outside of you, a force that you may not understand right now. But trust that it is not about you. The reasons behind why someone ignores you are often more complex than we can see. It's rarely a reflection of who you are as a person. In fact, it could be a redirection, a sign that there's something more important waiting for you. Perhaps the connection you sought wasn't the right one. Perhaps that space left by someone's absence is now an opportunity to make room for something or someone better aligned with your goals and values. Rejection is not the end, it's a pivot point guiding you toward your true path. So embrace it. Use this as fuel. Let the hurt propel you toward greater self-awareness. Understand that the real power lies not in the external approval you seek, but in the internal belief you hold about your own worth. You are not defined by the actions of others. You are defined by how you respond, how you grow, and how you choose to move forward. When someone ignores you, don't take it as a mark of failure. Instead, see it for what it is, a reminder to turn inward, to reconnect with your true self, and to trust that the universe is guiding you to something greater. In life, we all encounter moments where we feel invisible, where our presence seems unnoticed, and our efforts go unacknowledged. Perhaps it's a conversation with a colleague that's met with silence, a text message that doesn't get a reply, or a glance that never meets your eyes. Whatever the form, being ignored can have a profound impact on us, not only emotionally, but also mentally and physically. It's not something we can simply brush off, and it's important to recognize the depth of how being ignored affects us. Emotionally, the sting of being ignored often cuts deeper than rejection. When someone ignores us, it can trigger feelings of hurt, sadness, and even confusion. We may start questioning ourselves, am I not important enough? Did I say or do something wrong? These emotions can quickly spiral into self-doubt and insecurity. We begin to wonder about our worth and whether we truly matter to the people we care about. Our emotional response to being ignored is closely linked to our need for connection. As human beings, we are social creatures by nature, and we thrive in environments where we feel seen, heard, and understood. When we feel ignored, it's as though that basic human need for connection has been violated. The emotional pain is not just about the absence of a response, but about the absence of validation and acknowledgement. We may begin to feel isolated, as if we've been left out of the circle, and this isolation can evoke sadness and loneliness. But the emotional toll doesn't stop there. The experience of being ignored can also trigger feelings of anxiety. We may begin to overanalyze the situation, replaying the moment over and over in our minds, searching for an explanation for why we were overlooked. This mental loop can lead to heightened stress levels as our minds race with scenarios, assumptions, and doubts. The more we ruminate, the more our anxiety grows, and the more challenging it becomes to let go of the emotional weight that being ignored brings. Mentally, being ignored can cause us to lose our sense of equilibrium. Our thoughts and cognitive patterns may become clouded by uncertainty as we try to make sense of the situation. We start to question the motives of the person who ignored us, wondering if it was intentional or if we simply weren't important enough to warrant attention. In these moments, our minds begin to engage in self-protective behavior, which can lead to negative thought spirals that fuel feelings of inadequacy. These mental struggles can distract us from the things that truly matter, focusing our attention on external circumstances that are beyond our control. The physical impact of being ignored is perhaps the most surprising, yet it is very real. Our minds and bodies are deeply interconnected. When we experience emotional pain, the effects can manifest in physical ways. Studies have shown that social rejection and being ignored can activate the same areas of the brain that are responsible for processing physical pain. This means that being ignored doesn't just leave us feeling mentally drained, it can also leave us physically exhausted. It can cause tension, headaches, and even physical discomfort. The stress from being ignored can lead to changes in our body's chemistry, contributing to feelings of fatigue, irritability, and a lack of energy. Over time, this ongoing stress response can take a toll on our immune system, making us more vulnerable to illness. It's essential to recognize that being ignored is not just an isolated experience. The impact of being ignored can echo long after the moment has passed. The emotional, mental, and physical effects can linger, affecting our self-esteem, our relationships, and even our overall well-being. This makes it crucial to acknowledge these feelings and understand that they are valid. Our emotional responses are not just signs of weakness, they are signals that our need for connection has been unmet, and they deserve attention and care. However, it is also important to recognize that the act of being ignored is not always personal. Often the reason someone might ignore us have nothing to do with who we are as individuals. They may be struggling with their own challenges, dealing with their own emotions, or simply distracted by their own lives. When we're ignored, it's easy to assume that it's a reflection of our worth, but it's essential to remember that we are not defined by how others treat us. It's not a measure of our value or importance. So while the emotions of being ignored are real and valid, they should not define us. Instead, we must turn inward to recognize our own strength and resilience. Acknowledging the hurt, sadness, and frustration is the first step toward healing. The next step is to reframe the situation. We have the power to choose how we respond to being ignored. We can let it weaken us or use it as an opportunity for growth. In moments of feeling ignored, remember this: your worth does not depend on anyone's recognition or attention. You are valuable not because of the validation you receive from others, but because of who you are at your core. Recognizing and embracing your own worth, even in the face of silence, is the key to reclaiming your power and moving forward with strength and clarity. Being ignored is an inevitable part of life, a challenge we all face. But how we choose to respond to that challenge is what truly matters. By acknowledging the emotions it stirs within us, we open ourselves to deeper self-awareness and the ability to navigate these moments with grace. And in doing so, we not only protect our emotional well-being, but also emerge stronger, more resilient, and more connected to our true selves. As human beings, we are inherently social creatures. From the moment we are born, we crave connection. In fact, it's not just a desire, it's a fundamental need woven deeply into the fabric of our being. From the bonds we share with our family members to the friendships we nurture and the romantic relationships we seek, our need for connection is one of the most powerful forces that shape who we are. It's what drives us to seek understanding, to reach out for validation, and to ensure that our existence is recognized by those around us. At the core of this need for connection is the desire to feel understood. Understanding is the foundation of meaningful relationships. It's the feeling that someone else sees us not just the outward version, the face we show to the world, but the deeper, more vulnerable parts of ourselves. When we are understood, we feel validated. We feel as though we matter, as though our thoughts, feelings, and experiences are important. This validation is not just a superficial acknowledgement, it goes deeper. It's the affirmation that we are not alone in our experiences and that others can resonate with what we're going through. It's this sense of being seen and heard. That gives us a sense of belonging, a feeling that is as essential to our mental well-being as food and water are to our physical survival. Why does this validation matter so much? It's because as humans, we are hardwired to seek connection in order to survive and thrive. Our ancestors relied on the support and cooperation of their communities for survival. Those who were isolated, who didn't belong, were less likely to survive in a world full of dangers. So over millennia, the human brain evolved to value social bonds, creating a neural pathway that makes us seek out connection. Understanding and validation is a way to ensure our place within the group. In fact, our brains are so attuned to these social cues that the feeling of being rejected or ignored activates the same part of the brain that registers physical pain. This explains why emotional pain, such as the experience of being ignored, can feel so intense it is a deep, primal reaction that signals something is amiss in our sense of connection. As we grow older, the need for connection doesn't go away. In fact, it only becomes more complex. In our personal lives, we seek validation from friends, family, and partners. We want to be seen as worthy, capable, and valuable to those we care about. In our professional lives, we seek validation through recognition of our skills, achievements, and contributions. This need for recognition is not just about ego, it's about feeling that we have a meaningful place in the world and that our efforts are worthwhile. It's the desire for someone to say, I see you and I value what you bring to the table. But validation isn't always easy to come by. And in the absence of it, we often find ourselves searching, sometimes desperately, for approval or acknowledgement. This search for connection can sometimes lead us to make compromises or to accept less than we deserve. We may try to please others, modify our behavior to fit in, or suppress our true selves in the hope of receiving the validation we crave. But the problem with seeking validation from external sources is that it can be fleeting. People's recognition can be inconsistent, and no matter how hard we try to fit into the mold they've created for us, it's rarely enough to satisfy the deep need within us. This is where the true challenge lies, balancing our innate need for connection with the understanding that we cannot always rely on others to validate us. While external validation is important, it cannot be the sole source of our self-worth. We must also learn to validate ourselves, to acknowledge our own value and worth without needing constant reassurance from the world around us. True connection, at its core, begins with the relationship we have with ourselves. If we do not recognize our own value, if we cannot validate ourselves, we will constantly find ourselves seeking affirmation from others, often in ways that leave us feeling empty or unfulfilled. So how do we navigate this need for connection in a world that can often feel disconnected? The answer lies in creating authentic, meaningful relationships. We need to surround ourselves with people who understand us, not just on the surface, but at a deeper level. People who see us for who we truly are and who value us, flaws and all. In these relationships, connection isn't based on what we can offer or how we can perform. It's about mutual respect, understanding, and acceptance. It's about giving and receiving validation in a way that strengthens the bond and allows both individuals to flourish. It's also important to remember that seeking validation is not a weakness. It's a natural part of being human. The challenge comes in knowing when to seek it from others and when to look within ourselves for the recognition and affirmation we need. We must strive to develop self-compassion and self-understanding, recognizing that our worth does not depend on others' approval. When we can cultivate this inner sense of validation, we can then approach our relationships with greater authenticity, offering and receiving connection in ways that are not dependent on external factors. The need for connection is an integral part of who we are. It's a driving force that compels us to reach out, to engage, and to share our lives with others. But as with all things in life, it's important to strike a balance. While we seek connection from others, we must also learn to connect with ourselves. When we learn to validate our own worth, we free ourselves from the endless search for external approval, and we open ourselves to deeper, more meaningful connections with the people around us. Connection, when understood and nurtured properly, becomes the key to living a fulfilling and purposeful life, one where we not only seek understanding from others, but also extend that same understanding to ourselves. And in doing so, we create a life that is rich with meaning, purpose, and authentic connection. Life has a way of throwing challenges at us, and one of the most difficult yet common experiences we face is being ignored. Whether it's a conversation cut short, a text message left unanswered, or an entire social interaction that leaves us feeling invisible, being ignored can be an emotionally charged experience. It's natural to feel hurt, rejected, or even angry when we are brushed aside. But there's a crucial point we must understand: being ignored does not define our worth. It's an external action, not an internal truth. To grasp the power of perspective, we must first understand that our self-worth is intrinsic, rooted in who we are as individuals, not how others treat us. We often fall into the trap of equating how we are treated with how valuable we are. When we are acknowledged, praised, or included, we feel validated and worthwhile. Conversely, when we are ignored, we may begin to question our significance, doubting ourselves and our place in the world. But this is a flawed way of thinking. If we allow the actions of others to define us, we give up the control we have over our own identity and self-worth. The reality is that being ignored is often more about the other person's circumstances or their perspective than it is about our own value. People ignore others for countless reasons: stress, distraction, emotional turmoil, or simply because they are preoccupied with their own lives. It's not a personal attack on who we are. Just because someone fails to acknowledge us doesn't mean we are unworthy of attention, love, or respect. When we take a step back and look at the situation from a broader perspective, we begin to see that being ignored is not a reflection of our intrinsic value, but rather a transient external event. Just as someone's applause doesn't define our worth, neither does their silence. Both are external reactions to who we are, but neither defines our essence. If we allow ourselves to get swept away by the actions of others, we risk letting them dictate our emotional state and ultimately our sense of self. It is crucial to remember that our worth comes from within. Our value is not contingent upon external validation. It is determined by our beliefs, our actions, and our contributions to the world around us. When we can internalize this truth, we free ourselves from the emotional roller coaster that comes with seeking validation from others. Instead, we can ground ourselves in our own self-awareness, and our self-worth becomes unwavering, regardless of how others treat us. This shift in perspective is empowering. It's about understanding that our worth is not negotiable. It's about recognizing that being ignored doesn't diminish who we are, nor does it mean we are unimportant. The more we accept that external circumstances don't define us, the more resilient we become in the face of life's challenges. One of the most powerful aspects of this shift in perspective is the freedom it offers. When we stop seeking validation from others, we reclaim our power. We no longer feel helpless or small when someone ignores us because we know that their actions do not reflect our value. Instead of focusing on how we are treated, we begin to focus on how we treat ourselves, on nurturing our own self-worth, self-love, and self-compassion. We start to realize that our happiness, peace, and sense of fulfillment come from within, not from the recognition or approval of others. The freedom that comes with this perspective extends to our relationships as well. When we are secure in our own worth, we stop clinging to unhealthy relationships or seeking out validation from people who don't truly value us. Instead, we seek out relationships that are built on mutual respect, understanding, and appreciation. We no longer feel the need to prove ourselves or win over others. Instead, we show up as our authentic selves, knowing that we are enough as we are. At the same time, it's important to recognize that everyone is on their own journey. People who ignore us may be dealing with their own struggles, distractions, or insecurities. Their behavior is often a reflection of what is going on inside of them, not a reflection of us. It's a reminder that we should never take another person's actions too personally. The more we understand this, the easier it becomes to let go of the hurt caused by being ignored. Rather than internalizing the rejection, we can approach it with empathy and understanding. People are complex, and their actions are often influenced by factors beyond our control. In these moments, we must practice self-compassion and recognize that their behavior is not a direct reflection of our worth. The power of perspective also lies in the ability to see beyond the immediate emotional reaction. It's easy to fall into the trap of interpreting being ignored as a reflection of failure or inadequacy. But when we step back and view the situation through a different lens, we can see that being ignored might actually be an opportunity for growth. It could be a chance to build resilience, strengthen our emotional boundaries, and develop a deeper understanding of ourselves. In some cases, it might even be a sign that we need to let go of people or situations that are no longer serving our highest good. In the grand scheme of life, being ignored is a fleeting moment, a temporary experience that does not define who we are. It's simply an external event, one that doesn't have the power to shape our identity unless we allow it to. By shifting our perspective and understanding that our worth is inherent and independent of external validation, we free ourselves from the limitations that others' actions may impose on us. As we continue on our journey, let us remember this: we are not defined by the opinions, attention, or actions of others. Our value comes from within, from the depth of who we are, from the way we show up and the way we show up in the world, and from the way we treat ourselves and others. The next time we experience the sting of being ignored, let us embrace the power of perspective. Let us remind ourselves that our worth is unshakable, that it does not rest in the hands of others, and that we are enough just as we are. In life, we will inevitably encounter moments where we feel overlooked or dismissed. These moments of being ignored can stir up feelings of rejection, hurt, and confusion. But what if we could reframe these moments not as setbacks, but as opportunities for introspection, resilience, and personal growth? The truth is, moments of being ignored can serve as powerful catalysts for transformation, helping us uncover deeper layers of ourselves and fostering growth in ways that we may never have expected. First, let's consider the power of introspection in these moments. When we are ignored, it forces us to pause and reflect on the situation. The initial emotional reaction might be anger or sadness, but beneath those feelings is a deeper question: why does this affect me so much? When we allow ourselves to go beyond the surface emotions and ask this question, we open the door to understanding our own needs, insecurities, and desires. It gives us the opportunity to explore our own internal landscape. Being ignored can shine a light on what we value and where we place our sense of importance. If we are upset because someone didn't acknowledge us, it may signal a deeper desire for connection or validation that we might not have fully recognized before. Sometimes we seek external validation because we don't feel secure in our own worth. In moments of being ignored, we are presented with a mirror that allows us to look at our own relationship with self-worth. Are we seeking validation from others because we haven't learned to validate ourselves? Are we allowing others' opinions to dictate our sense of self? These questions are invitations to explore our relationship with our own identity and to strengthen our internal sense of value. This introspection can also reveal areas where we might need to set better boundaries or change our expectations of others. If being ignored triggers an intense emotional reaction, it might point to the fact that we are too dependent on external recognition. It's a call to examine whether we are giving away too much of ourselves in relationships and whether we need to prioritize our own emotional needs over seeking approval. When we take the time to reflect on these emotions, we can learn how to cultivate a stronger sense of self-reliance and self-acceptance, which will serve us well in future interactions. While introspection is crucial, resilience is another powerful quality that is often born from moments of being ignored. Resilience is the ability to bounce back from adversity, and moments of rejection or neglect provide the perfect testing ground for building this trait. When we are ignored, our first instinct may be to retreat or to allow the hurt to define us. But in reality, these are the moments when we can choose to rise above the situation. Instead of succumbing to feelings of defeat, we can use being ignored as a challenge to develop emotional strength. Resilience isn't about avoiding negative emotions, it's about learning how to respond to them in a healthy and constructive way. When we face moments of being ignored, we can decide not to let it diminish our self-worth. We can practice self-compassion, remind ourselves of our value, and move forward without letting this external event derail our sense of peace or happiness. Building resilience doesn't mean suppressing our feelings of hurt or disappointment. Instead, it means acknowledging those feelings without allowing them to control us. It's about acknowledging that while we cannot control the actions of others, we can control how we respond to those actions. By learning to navigate moments of being ignored with emotional maturity and self-respect, we not only build resilience, but also cultivate a greater sense of inner strength that can carry us through many challenges in the future. Ultimately, moments of being ignored are opportunities for growth. Personal growth is often born from discomfort. Just as physical muscles grow stronger through resistance, our emotional and psychological muscles are strengthened through adversity. Being ignored presents an emotional challenge that allows us to grow in multiple dimensions. It challenges our beliefs, helps us redefine our self-worth, and encourages us to deepen our understanding of ourselves and the world around us. When we are ignored, we might initially feel powerless, but the reality is that we have the power to transform the situation. We have the power to change how we perceive the event, and in doing so, we change how it affects us. Rather than allowing being ignored to weaken us, we can use it as a tool for growth. It becomes a lesson in emotional resilience, self-awareness, and self-compassion. We can choose to use this experience to break old patterns of seeking validation from others and start cultivating a deeper, more authentic sense of self-acceptance. Furthermore, growth in these moments isn't limited to just emotional strength. It also involves recognizing the opportunity to change our approach to relationships. Being ignored can sometimes highlight imbalances in our connections with others. It can force us to confront the reality that not all relationships are equally reciprocal or nurturing. This recognition can be uncomfortable, but it's also a powerful opportunity to reevaluate our relationships and make intentional decisions about where we invest our time and energy. We can ask ourselves, are we surrounding ourselves with people who uplift us, or do we find ourselves constantly seeking approval from those who may not value us? This realization is a key part of personal growth, as it encourages us to create healthier, more balanced connections moving forward. It's also important to note that growth in the face of being ignored doesn't mean we must prove anything to anyone. It means we recognize that we are worthy simply because we exist, and we don't need others to affirm that for us. Growth means stepping into our full potential, not based on the validation we receive from the world, but on the self-awareness and confidence we build within ourselves. Moments of being ignored are not the end of the road. Rather, they are just a stop along the way, a chance to pause, reflect, and emerge stronger. Through introspection, resilience, and growth, we can turn these challenging experiences into stepping stones that lead us toward greater self-discovery, empowerment, and personal transformation. So the next time you experience the sting of being ignored, remember that it's not a reflection of your worth, it's simply an invitation to grow, learn, and become more of the person you are meant to be. In life, one of the most painful experiences we can go through is being ignored. It's an emotional wound that often carries with it a sense of rejection, abandonment, or insignificance. We naturally begin to wonder, what did I do wrong? Or why doesn't this person value me? But what if, instead of internalizing the hurt and allowing it to define us, we recognize that the reasons behind being ignored are often complex and entirely unrelated to our own actions, worth, or character? What if we understood that external factors beyond our control or influence are often at play? The first step in understanding why we are sometimes ignored is recognizing that other people's behaviors and actions are often shaped by their own experiences, emotions, and circumstances. People are not isolated in their actions. They carry the weight of their past experiences, personal struggles, and current mental and emotional states. Just as we have our own internal world that influences how we interact with others, so do they. When someone ignores us, it may not have anything to do with who we are as a person. Instead, it may reflect where they are in their own life journey. For instance, a person might ignore us because they are dealing with stress or emotional pain. When we are overwhelmed by our own struggles, whether personal, professional, or relational, it can be difficult to extend our attention and energy to others. In these moments, we might inadvertently withdraw or become distant, not because we do not value the people around us, but because we are preoccupied with our own challenges. The same is true for others. If someone is struggling with a tough situation, whether it's a family issue, work stress, or personal insecurities, they may simply not have the capacity to engage with others in a meaningful way. In these instances, their actions of ignoring us have more to do with their own emotional state than with anything we've done or failed to do. We must acknowledge that people's behavior is often influenced by their own biases, misunderstandings, and perceptions. We all see the world through a lens shaped by our unique experiences, culture, and upbringing. Sometimes someone may ignore us not because of who we are, but because of a preconceived notion or assumption they hold about us. This could be due to past interactions, misunderstandings, or even their own insecurities. It's important to remember that the way people respond to us is often filtered through their own inner worlds, which means it may have very little to do with us at all. Even in relationships that are otherwise healthy, people can experience periods of emotional withdrawal. These moments may arise for a number of reasons: unspoken needs, unaddressed conflicts, or simply the ebb and flow of emotional intimacy. It's easy to fall into the trap of assuming that being ignored means we are unloved or unimportant. But this is a simplistic view. Relationships, like all human interactions, are dynamic. They fluctuate with the seasons of life, and emotional distance or silence does not necessarily equate to a loss of affection or worth. Sometimes a person may need space to process their thoughts or feelings, and this temporary distance is not a reflection of our value as a person. Another unseen force that often contributes to being ignored is the nature of modern communication. In an age of digital overload, it has become easier than ever to disconnect from others. The constant barrage of messages, notifications, and social media updates can cause people to become distracted, detached, or overwhelmed. In these moments, someone might not be ignoring us out of malice or disregard, but simply because they are overwhelmed by the sheer volume of demands on their attention. It's easy to feel slighted when our texts go unanswered or our calls are ignored, but in many cases it's less about us and more about the overwhelming noise of modern life. Furthermore, the complexities of human interactions often involve unspoken dynamics, power imbalances, unresolved tensions, or unexpressed expectations that can affect how people engage with one another. Sometimes we may be ignored as a result of an unresolved issue or a hidden agenda that we aren't privy to. In these situations, being ignored is not a judgment of our worth, but a reflection of unaddressed conflict or unmet needs in the relationship. Recognizing this complexity can help us avoid taking it personally and instead approach the situation with patience and curiosity, seeking understanding rather than immediate resolution. It is also crucial to acknowledge the role of timing in these situations. Sometimes the reasons behind being ignored have everything to do with timing and nothing to do with our worth. A person may be in the midst of a challenging phase in their life and out of sheer necessity retreat from social interactions to focus on their own survival. They may be incapable of offering the connection and attention we seek, not because we don't deserve it, but because they are consumed by their own personal battles. These moments of emotional withdrawal can be temporary, and with time and understanding, they can pass. So what can we do when faced with being ignored? The key is to recognize that these external forces, whether emotional, circumstantial, or relational, are often far more complex than we can see in the moment. When we shift our perspective to understand that being ignored does not define us, we free ourselves from the harmful habit of self-blame. We allow ourselves to step outside of the situation and acknowledge that the actions of others are influenced by a multitude of factors beyond our control. In these moments, it's important to practice self-compassion. Instead of turning inward and questioning our own worth, we can offer ourselves kindness and understanding. Being ignored is painful, but it doesn't diminish who we are. We are still valuable, worthy of love and connection, and deserving of respect. It's essential to remind ourselves that the way we are treated by others is not a reflection of our intrinsic worth. Our value is constant, no matter the actions or inactions of those around us. It's also crucial to remember that not all relationships or connections are meant to last forever. People change, circumstances shift, and sometimes connections naturally fade. Recognizing that people are not static and that their behavior may not always align with how we wish to be treated allows us to cultivate a deeper sense of resilience. We can navigate the complexities of human interactions with a greater sense of peace, knowing that being ignored is not an indication of our lack, but rather a temporary moment in the ever-changing nature of life. The reasons behind being ignored are often complex and multifaceted. They are deeply influenced by the inner worlds of others, external circumstances, and the dynamics of communication. By recognizing this complexity and shifting our perspective, we can free ourselves from the painful trap of self-blame and cultivate a greater sense of understanding, patience, and self-compassion. We can stand firm in the knowledge that our worth is not defined by the actions of others, and we are always deserving of love, respect, and connection. Rejection is a universal experience, a part of life that almost everyone encounters at some point. Whether it's being turned down for a job, dismissed by a romantic partner, overlooked in a social context, rejection can sting deeply. It has the potential to leave us questioning our worth, doubting our abilities, and wondering what went wrong. However, what if we could shift our perspective on rejection, seeing it not as a setback or failure, but as a powerful redirection and opportunity to align with our true purpose and values? What if we understood that rejection, rather than being a negative force, could be the universe's way of guiding us towards something greater, something more aligned with who we truly are? Rejection often feels personal, but the truth is that it is rarely about us as individuals. More often than not, rejection occurs because of a mismatch between where we are and where we're meant to be. In the grand scheme of life, not everything we pursue is destined to work out. And that's okay. Rejection is simply a signal that we are not in the right place, doing the right thing, or with the right people. It's a reminder that there are greater opportunities ahead, ones that will resonate more deeply with our values, passions, and aspirations. When we reframe rejection as redirection, we begin to see it as a blessing in disguise. It's no longer something to fear or avoid, but something to embrace. In fact, some of the most successful and fulfilled people in the world have faced rejection repeatedly, only to realize that it was precisely these rejections that led them to the experiences, people, and opportunities that truly aligned with their purpose. Rejection is not a final verdict on our worth or abilities. It's simply a course correction, a gentle nudge steering us towards something more meaningful and fulfilling. Take, for instance, the story of J.K. Rowling, the author of the Harry Potter series. Before her books became a global phenomenon, Rowling faced numerous rejections from publishers. In fact, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone was rejected by 12 different publishers. Imagine if she had taken these rejections as a sign to give up on her dream. Yet, instead of letting rejection define her, she saw each no as one step closer to the right opportunity, to the publisher who would eventually bring her books into the world. If she had not faced rejection, she might not have become the writer we know today. This example demonstrates the power of redirection. The rejections she experienced were not failures, but lessons that led her to the success she ultimately achieved. Rejection is often the universe's way of guiding us away from things that are not meant for us and towards the things that truly serve our highest good. Whether it's a relationship, a job, or a personal goal, sometimes what we think we want isn't in alignment with our true purpose. We may not see it in the moment, but rejection is offering us the clarity we need to step away from the wrong path and find the right one. It's not always easy to accept, especially when we've invested time, energy, and emotion into something. However, trusting that there's something better waiting for us on the other side of rejection can help us navigate these moments with faith and optimism. This concept of redirection is closely tied to our values and purpose. The more we understand what truly matters to us, what we stand for, what we believe in, And what we are passionate about, the easier it becomes to see rejection as a tool for alignment. Rejection provides us with the space to evaluate whether what we are pursuing is truly in harmony with our core values. When we face rejection, it gives us the opportunity to reflect on whether we are on the path that is most aligned with our true self, or if we are pursuing something that was driven by external validation, societal expectations, or fleeting desires. In many cases, rejection allows us to clarify our purpose. We might be chasing after goals that are not in line with our deepest passions, and rejection serves as a wake-up call. It asks us to reflect on whether we are following our own dreams or simply living out someone else's vision of success. When we face rejection, it provides us with the gift of time and space to reconnect with our authentic self and realign with what truly brings us joy and fulfillment. To guiding us back to our values, rejection also teaches us resilience. The more we experience rejection, the stronger we become. Rejection forces us to build emotional endurance, and over time, it teaches us that our worth is not tied to the acceptance of others. We learn how to detach our identity from external outcomes and find a deeper sense of fulfillment that is not contingent on the approval of others. In this way, rejection can actually strengthen our self-belief and resilience, helping us bounce back stronger and more determined than before. Embracing rejection as a redirection also allows us to practice patience. Often we want things to work out on our timeline, but life has its own rhythm and timing. Just because something doesn't happen when we expect it to doesn't mean it won't happen at all. Rejection is a reminder that timing is everything. Sometimes we're not ready for the success we desire or the opportunity we seek. When we experience rejection, it's an invitation to trust in the timing of our journey and to continue moving forward with patience and perseverance. It's also essential to recognize that rejection doesn't mean we aren't good enough. It simply means that something better is waiting for us. We may not see it in the moment, but the doors that close through rejection often make way for the doors that are meant to open. Instead of dwelling on the no, we can embrace the possibility of the yes that is yet to come. Every rejection is an opportunity to get closer to what we truly deserve. It's not a reflection of our worth, but a reflection of the fact that we are being guided towards something greater. As we shift our mindset around rejection, we also become more open to possibility. Rejection doesn't close all doors, it opens new ones. It encourages us to explore other avenues, to seek out new opportunities, and to take bold steps toward our goals with renewed vigor. Every rejection can serve as an invitation to be more creative, to think outside the box, and to expand our horizons. By embracing rejection as redirection, we can move through life with a sense of excitement and anticipation, knowing that each step we take is leading us closer to the path we are meant to walk.